a region of the minority steeped in national history, where the lifeblood of the national economy attracts diverse peoples and interests from across the country and around the globe. It is here in Nigeria's bustling Niger Delta region that we observe and incisively diarize life and activity in this fast-expanding region facing peculiar human and socio-economic challenges. We assess local industry. We hear directly from the people affected by decisions, and we question the decision makers empowered to serve and protect them. I am Ajuri Ngelale, and it is my honor to present to you a diary from the Delta.
Wednesdays at 5:30 p.m.
exclusively on AIT.
To partner with this program or to place advertisements, call 0706-936-3169. Also, we want to hear from you concerning the development of the Niger Delta on our social media platforms under Diary from the Delta. I am Ajuri Ngilale. Do enjoy the show.
This is life for millions of people in the nation's Niger Delta region. Poverty in the midst of plenty, where you can see food packages combined with human waste products to fill the local waters, and children playing innocent games nearby toxic waste substances. I am Ajuri Ngelale, and I assess the state of sanitation and other related environmental issues in this entry in my diary from the Delta.
Waste management, potable water accessibility, and environmental sanitation are all critical inputs in the sustainable development of both people and places. Here in the Niger Delta, political considerations influence many aspects of public service delivery, sometimes with positive effect, but oftentimes to the detriment of key public service institutions. Waste management is an area in which administrative competency is evident for all to sense, on the ground and in the air, particularly in a region once revered for its eco-friendly landscapes. On weekend mornings, residents comply with official directive not to leave home and are thus displeased when sanitation trucks fail to arrive to remove solid waste materials in some of the busiest capitals in the region. In a trend which extends beyond the Niger Delta, the dearth of available solid waste storage facilities across urban centers and rural communities results in mass littering with little in the way of sanction or levy to discourage such popular tendencies. While this constitutes an affront to those yearning for more orderly social conditions, the consequences of sewage management failures in underprivileged urban areas have life-threatening implications.
Our politicians and our government, they are not trying. They are not doing the way they're supposed to do it. If for me, I would say if they can come here and stay here a day or 2 days, they will know what they're passing through here. But because they're living in their air-conditioned house and they're moving with their cars and living their luxurious life, they don't care what we are passing through here as their fellow human being. I know that God in heaven will not be happy because of the way they keep us in this place. Look at the condition of this place. People are living, we are sleeping here, we are eating here, we are doing everything here, and we know the same human being like them because nobody can speak on our behalf. But I'm not happy when I I say that if God will touch their mind, if they can know that it's people that are living here, they should come and do something and do it well, how it's supposed to be.
In neglected areas where human waste and untreated water supply combine with inadequate toilet facilities, as well as deficient sewage transport and treatment facilities, waterborne diseases threaten the lives of children. Part of the pain endured by people suffering in these living conditions is the understanding that despite a dramatic rise in oil revenue windfalls to regional state governments over the past decade, most residents in the region have not witnessed a commensurate rate of development and environmental uplift. And as conditions worsen in many areas, so does the morale of youths, who become terrifyingly ready to resort to any and all means of self-help.
What in the paranoid me pass, we say our politicians they know say we dey suffer. We are living in poverty. We dey suffer. We dey live for dirty environments. Nothing for us. We dey cry. They no fit come help us. Their own be say when they make them do the politician, make them win, make them carry their children go abroad, leave us for here with the suffer. They don't know what thing they happen. Now Biafra don't come. They greedy to become Biafra. Now still because of no money, poverty. Our politicians them, it reach us for us to kill all of them. Kill all our politicians to make sure say Nigeria better.
The issues involved in tackling the region's waste management problem are greater than just official corruption. Waste management and sanitation matters are handled by local government authorities in some locales, while state governments shoulder the responsibility in others. Role duplication is one issue, methodology is another. In developed societies, professionals manage such institutions, embracing a non-political management of services by autonomous public agencies in accordance with standardized technical and commercial criteria. There is also a general interest in promoting private sector participation rather than maintaining a total dependence on scarce state resources. Across the globe, changes in the institutional and industrial structure of the waste management sector have gone hand in hand with a requirement for services to be self-financing. The revenue-generating potential of effective waste management services and its associated taxation potential for state governments in the zone can complement sophisticated subsidy systems for low-income social groups, something which has not been attempted in the modern Nigerian context. However, it is worth noting that poor sanitation and water quality in the region is not exclusively as a result of solid waste mismanagement. Last week on the program, we examined the impact of oil and gas pollution in Ogoniland by oil companies operating in the region, with a particular focus on the adverse effect on the lives of the people in the area. With cancer-inducing carcinogens now invisibly permeating hydrocarbon-polluted groundwaters, water quality is being impacted by several different factors. Since the return of civilian rule in 1999, more than $30 billion worth of environmental damages in the Niger Delta region have not been paid, just as a holistic cleanup exercise has not been undertaken. Indeed, oil companies, largely responsible for the deterioration of local economic and human health indexes, have paid less than $1 billion to communities and individuals, thus evading the costlier remedial initiatives, a trend of non-accountability which advocacy groups assert is institutional, intentional, and overtly illegal.
Now, people have complained before about oil pollution in the water, in the creeks and rivers, but this report has shown that there's oil pollution in the groundwater. So even when people are sinking wells, the water they're pulling up is polluted, contaminated, and they've been drinking it. In several cases, they found that contamination of water that people are drinking was at 1,000 times higher than standards in Nigeria. So it is an extremely serious finding. With scientific evidence, hard evidence of the problems, we're hoping that the next step will be a proper, thorough cleanup with all of those actors who are responsible putting up the money and putting up the political will. So this is the government of Nigeria, the oil companies themselves, and in our view, the home countries of those oil companies, so the UK and Netherlands in the case of Shell, for example. The two spills that Shell have admitted liability for, which are in Ogoniland, at Bodo in Ogoniland, are effectively a drop in the ocean compared to what has happened over the whole of the oil producing areas of the Niger Delta over half a century. And certainly, while illegal activity is part of the problem, Shell has tried to make it sound like it's most of the problem and thereby evade accountability and responsibility. Shell's practice in the Niger Delta, it almost certainly would never get away with that if it was operating in the Netherlands or Norway. It gets away with very poor practice in relation to cleanup in the Niger Delta because the Nigerian regulators are so weak. And again, this is another thing that the UN report has confirmed. The regulators in Nigeria are not able to do their job properly. They're dramatically under-resourced. There are immediate emergency measures, there are long-term measures, and cleanup would take a long time, but it needs to start. We need to start somewhere, but it needs to be thorough, independent, and take into account the impact that this pollution has had on people for many, many years.
Heading Shell Petroleum Development Company in Nigeria from 2004 to 2015, during which Shell had admitted that its own technical faults had caused massive oil spills in Ogoniland's still devastated Bodo community and Bayelsa's Bonga well site. Former Shell Nigeria Managing Director Mutiu Sumonu emphasized that illegal oil bunkering and pipeline vandalism makes clean operations difficult in the region, and thus a final solution difficult to come by.
All spills are bad, and we are determined to do everything within our control to reduce operational spills. What is happening in Ogoniland is, however, not typical of the rest of the Niger Delta. SPDC stopped producing oil in Ogoniland in 1993 and shut down all production there because of threats and violence against our staff and facilities. Until effective action is taken to curb all illegal activities there, there's little that can be done to bring an end to the problem of spills. We are talking with our partners, government and NGOs about how to solve this problem. And SPDC will work with the Nigerian government on the next steps to help clean up Ogoniland.
While accountability is not known to be historically characteristic of Nigeria's oil and gas industry, attempts to assess environmental pollution issues which predate Nigeria's independence have been undertaken. Over the course of 14 months of pollution site evaluations, surveys, reviews of thousands of medical records, and hundreds of community engagement meetings, the United Nations Environment Programme, UNEP, compiled a report detailing the true impact of 50 years of oil pollution in Ogoniland, along with remedial recommendations, finding that a full cleanup of Ogoniland will take 25 to 30 years, and coordinating the project on the ground was Mike Cowing, who noted that the severity of conditions on the ground surpassed even their worst projections.
The geographical nature of the problem, the extent of the oil impact on virtually every facet of life and community and the environment of Ogoniland. So I think it's fair to say that I underestimated the level of the problems and the challenges in Ogoniland when I first went there. But then it's an environment within which in a short period of time the enormity of the problems became apparent quite quickly. The assessment itself, which was looking at oil impacts simplistically within Ogoniland, clearly had its origins and its roots within the community itself, who had, I think, lobbied quite long and hard for an independent assessment to be done from a credible third-party organisation. So we really saw the project as being led by the community and responding to the demands of the community. So one of the things we did early on, once we'd mobilised the teams of scientists and what have you, is we set about engaging with the community representatives to make sure that we were on track, to make sure that they were viable project partners. We did that through various techniques, one of which was the establishment of a community consultation committee, which met on a regular basis, as a minimum on a monthly basis. That was a large committee comprising representatives from the various different communities within Ogoniland and representing the different structures within the community. So we had youth, we had elders, we had women, decision makers, religious leaders. So it was really a mosaic of the very many different individuals and groups within the Ogoni community.
To partner with this program or to place advertisements, call 0706 936 3169. Also, we want to hear from you concerning the development of the Niger Delta on our social media platforms under Diary from the Delta. I am Ajuri Ngilale. Do enjoy the show. The UNEP report was completed and presented to former President Goodluck Jonathan in August 2011. In 2012, the Jonathan administration implemented one of the UNEP report's recommendations by setting up the Hydrocarbon Pollution Restoration Project, HYPREP, as the implementing organ for the cleanup of Ogoniland. This was envisioned by UNEP to be a multi-stakeholder body with representatives from the federal government, river state, affected communities, and the international oil companies. However, industry watchers have noted that the former petroleum minister's previous employment as an executive manager with Shell Petroleum Nigeria made the implementation of the UNEP report particularly challenging, as it had indicted the same oil company, demanding large-scale remedial payouts from that company. Interest conflicts aside, a multi-billion naira fraud scandal rocked the HYPREP's management team in 2013 after a blown whistle revealed that billions of naira were paid to ghost workers under the name of HYPREP directly from NNPC accounts, despite the reality that HYPREP was domiciled under the Federal Ministry of Petroleum Resources, separate from the NNPC. To the present day, HYPREP has achieved nothing. This would be the only step taken to implement the UNEP report since its 2011 presentation. After President Muhammadu Buhari was elected in March 2015, he ordered the fast-track implementation of the UNEP report by directing that HYPREP be reconfigured with a new governing council and governance structure that will include both indigenous citizen and official stakeholders to raise funds and utilize the multi-billion-dollar funding requirements needed to clean up Ogoniland with an initial seed funding of $10 million, a commitment he gave once again in Kenya just weeks ago.
Devastation caused by this situation has destroyed many lives and livelihoods, and is clearly a driver for the reason why many people in that region have lost faith in government, resulting to many criminal activities we are seeing in the region today. The action our government took to implement the UNEP recommendations has given the indigents of the region hope that there are better days ahead.
While HYPREP undergoes much-needed restructuring, the role of government regulators in the region's oil pollution crisis cannot be overstated. The National Oil Spill Detection and Response Agency, NOSTRA, was established to prevent oil spill incidents before they occur, to check and monitor the state of relevant pipeline infrastructure, and to oversee and certify the cleanup efforts of oil companies wherever spills take place, while also empowered to sanction erring oil firms where cleanup efforts have not been undertaken. However, Corruption in the regulatory bodies has encouraged regulators to collude with erring oil companies to certify cleanups where none took place, just as the misappropriation of scarce resources has left Nostra with an acute lack of technical equipment, logistics, and adequately trained professionals, leaving them to rely on oil companies for logistical support. The UNEP report exposed the weaknesses of key regulators in the fight against pipeline vandalism and corporate abuses. The absence of such institutions on the ground in Ogoniland has left a fertile ground for oil thieves and illegal refiners. In the creeks, illegal refiners still have backers placed highly in political circles, who still require illicit funding streams to mobilize support for political activities in the region, and while the risk is high, the boys on the ground work as if they have nothing to fear.
It's risky. About 2 or 3 times this place fire breakouts, and one of the guys working there, you can see his skin. He was caught in the fire, burned. Well, this is Nigeria. With little money, you can get yourself out from that place. They know that we are suffering. We are doing this as a result of poverty caused by unemployment. They know this fact, and that is why when we cry to them, they release whoever they arrested from the community with little money to build them.
The torturous contrast of living standards in what is on paper the nation's hub of prosperity is thick in the air and inescapably pungent to the senses of the suffering common man and his family. Whether it is oil in the water or human waste unaccounted for, the citizen loses faith in his social contract with government, praying that the corridors of power will be moved to action by his cries so that he can believe again. I am Ajuri Ngilale, signing off. To partner with this program or to place advertisements, call 0706 936 3169. Also, we want to hear from you concerning the development of the Niger Delta on our social media platforms under Diary from the Delta.